Hey everybody, final thoughts time for Spirits of the Rice Paddy, which, as I said up front, is on Kickstarter right now. You can follow the, or no, would it be there? No, I guess it'd be over there. Yeah, I think that's where the link is if you'd like to go learn a little bit more about the game, see what the final components look like, what the final art looks like instead of all this prototype stuff I've been showing you, and learn a little bit more about, the particulars of getting the game and all that. But just to wrap it up, I gotta say, wow. I've actually played several of designer Phil DeBerry's games, and I've always struck me as actually very, very clever, have really, really neat elements in them. But in almost every case, actually no, that's not true. In every case, every game of his I've played, it's always really felt to me like there wasn't enough attention put into the two-player experience because, was it A Kingdom of Solomon? When you play two-player, when the players split that map up between only two players, it just becomes a crazy Monty Hall run, and you really need more players to distribute the wealth a bit more. And oh gosh, what was they? There's several. But there's always these things where, okay, I can see mechanically this game is really smart, does a lot of neat stuff. I love these ideas, but they just don't work when you bring it down to two. It's clear. His first big game was Revolution, which is a 3-player minimum game. It's never really been where his passion has been, I think, anyway. This game changes that. This game is brilliant as a 2-player game. Obviously, it's a really nice, solid Euro, so it scales very, very nicely between 2 and 3 and 4. And the brilliant thing about it is this has interaction. Well, I was going to say this has interaction in a really, really cool way that isn't all about stealing from your opponent or anything like that. The way that water works, the way that if I'm the one who has gotten the blessings of the spirits of the rice paddy, so the water comes to me first, and then it trickles down through my various paddies before it can make it over to your board, and then you end up getting some stuff, just becomes an incredibly interesting and intricate puzzle because I'm not just building my farmland solely to get maximum yield, but also for maximum water retention, which is a very, very cool. And it has this very tactile feel as you watch the water travel from one paddy to another, and there it goes over to yours. That's just really, really brilliant. I think that core mechanism is so great. It's infinitely fascinating. Every time you play the game, depending on how the rocks are going to block you in, depending on what the achievements are that will, push you in certain different directions, you will find yourself pursuing wildly different strategies just in the way you allocate, all of your farmland. Brilliant, brilliant stuff, and works really, really well even as 2 players. Now, I gotta say, the only thing that really bugs me about this game at all is the very, very mean cards. You saw Jen using 2 of them in the run-through. Early on, she got out the Pest Spirit, and then later on, she got out the Wicked Spirit, which is basically the Pest Spirit on steroids. And as it happens, there are 40 spirit cards in this game, the 1 to 20s and the 1 to 40s. Of those 40 cards, 6 of them are kind of aggressive, screw with your opponent cards. And they call the same kind of things, letting you put different amounts of pests or weeds on different opponents. One of them is different. It lets you hoard water. It's literally called water hoarding, I believe. And it means that, hey, normally that water should have flowed out. And over into my space, I get to hoard water. I get to put multiple tiles of water in one hex. And so I can hoard it so nobody else gets it. And that's really, it's not like that extra water does any good for you. It's just a very aggressive keep it from everybody else. And so, Jen and I enjoyed it quite a bit, but, we were finding that in the card draft, we would just, anytime one of those 6, this is not very many, there's only 6 out of 40 cards, any one of those would come in the draft, they would just end up getting drafted out. And, because we just didn't want to attack each other. But then one of the things that happened was we found that without players hitting each other with weeds and pests, they didn't really come into the game as much as they were clearly supposed to based on the design. And as such, we ended up not having to do as much maintenance because there just wasn't much stuff hitting us because players weren't hitting each other. But then I asked the designer, Phil, hey, you know what? We would really, for Jen and I to continue playing this game and enjoying it because we love it. But the aggression stuff is just too harsh, and us basically just pulling the cards out kind of breaks the balance of the game because then we had an overflow of laborers because we didn't have to do as much maintenance. And I talked to him about it, and there was a very, very simple solution for that. In this rain deck, How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 12 cards in this rain deck. And I believe it's 4 of them. 2, 3, yeah, 4 of the 12 cards have no weeds or pests. And so I talked to, and I'm sorry, I'm just going off on a variant that makes this game very, very fun for me and Jen as Care Bears. If you're not worried about the fact that there is, a 6 in 40 chance, whatever that breaks down to, that you can really screw over your opponent by constantly dumping pests and weeds in their space, if you don't mind that kind of aggressive interaction, this game is a total no-brainer. You got to go for it. But since I know a lot of folks who watch my show are like me and they're really worried about having a lot of direct aggression with their spouse, if they play their spouse like I do, what Jen and I tried out, and Phil agreed that it should work out just fine, and it seems to work out fine for us so far. Of these 4 cards that have no pests or weeds on them, we take 2 of them out, the 246 and the other 246. So now there's only 10 cards and only 2 of them are pest free. And that is going to significantly increase the likelihood that the rains are going to bring pests and weeds back into the game. And if you want to push it up even more, you could take out all of them so that the rain always brings pests and weeds. And that kind of offsets the fact that there are fewer pests and weeds coming into the game through attack cards when we take those 3 attack cards out. Because if you just, those 6 attack cards. You take those 6 attack cards out, there are still enough cards to have an interesting card draft no matter how many players, 2, 3, or 4. It's just the fact that there are less weeds in the game. So if you start taking these ones out, that kind of balances out, and you can have what Jen and I consider a perfect, wonderful farming simulation with a brilliant, engaging puzzle to solve as you figure out how to best build your rice paddies. And one of the things we love and we don't see enough of in games, a really great sense of escalation. Because you start out this game just making, just chicken scratch, just trying to make $4 or $5 here or there. By the end of the game, you're harvesting, 30, 40, 50, 60, $100 worth of grain, in those final couple of rounds. And it just feels so good that you've gone from 0 to hero, from nothing to this massive producer of rice. And it just feels very satisfying. So much fun. It works on so many levels. And, the non-nasty water spirits, there are so many cool effects. When you're doing the draft, you want every single one of these cards. They're all so incredibly good. So they're very well designed too. Every time you play, you're going to get a different combination of these in your hand that's going to very radically change the way you go about doing things, the way you go about building your patties. And then with radically different achievements, this game is just firing on all cylinders. And if you don't mind aggression, the base game as it is works great. If you do mind aggression, like me and Jen, there's a very nice Care Bear variant. I just outlined it for you. So the game can work regardless. You don't have to punch each other in the face to enjoy Spirits of the Rice Paddy. And that's why, we are stoked about it. I think this would have the chance of making one of my games of the year for 2014. Now, of course, it's on Kickstarter in 2014, but it's not actually going to ship to people. So I would say this is an early pick for probably one of my top 20 of 2015. Top 10, who knows? 2015 is way too far off. But this game is just too cool for school. And I think it signals a new chapter for designer Phil Duberry, who keeps putting out really clever designs, because between this and Fidelitas, which I did a run through for a couple of months ago, he's shown that he is now able to make really great designs that work well with 2 also. And so that's why I'm so excited. Spirits of the Rice Paddy. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, let me know. Again, you can learn more on the Kickstarter page. Any mistakes, please point them out. They will get noted. And otherwise, hope you have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.